Kael had never been a man for ceremonies, so when the inheritance drones arrived at his cramped apartment, with blinking legal stamps and a monotone voice announcing that his uncle had passed, he mostly thought about whether this meant he had to dress formally. The drones explained, in their usual lifeless way, that he was now the sole heir to his uncle's property on a colony world orbiting a dull red star. Kael squinted at the contract, wondering if there might be a hidden fee somewhere. His uncle had always struck him as the kind of man who'd find a way to make even death a practical joke. By the time Kael arrived at the colony, the humor had mostly drained out of him. The transport ship rattled like an ancient washing machine. The air smelled faintly of recycled cabbage, and the colony itself looked like someone had tried to build a city out of spare ship parts. He dragged his bag through the dusty streets, muttering that if this was what inheritance looked like, maybe he should have stayed home and inherited the couch his neighbor promised him. At the end of the street stood the estate, if one could call a structure with half-collapsed walls and mismatched alloy panels an estate. A drone hovered at the entrance, buzzing in its cheerless voice. Property transfer confirmed. Please step forward to receive assets. Kael sighed, bracing himself for the sight of broken machinery, maybe an old ship hull. Instead, two figures stepped from the shadowed courtyard. They looked human at first glance, tall, graceful, with hair that shimmered faintly in the weak sunlight. But their long, tapering ears marked them as something else. They regarded him with an expression that was both expectant and cold, as if they were measuring how heavy the chains would feel. Kael froze. So, let me guess. You're not a toaster or a tractor. Neither answered. The taller one narrowed her eyes, while the smaller tilted her head, studying him like a scientist watching a bug attempt long division. The drone chirped. Assets transferred. 2 bonded subjects, designation Lyra and Sen. Property rights acknowledged. Then it zipped away, leaving Kael with his bag, 2 alien women, and the vague sense he had just become the punchline of a cosmic joke. He cleared his throat. Okay. First things first. I didn't actually expect to inherit people. Honestly, I was kind of hoping for a spaceship, maybe a coffee maker. But you two, you're free. Like, actually free. I'm not here to boss anyone around. I can barely manage my laundry. The taller one, Lyra, stiffened. Free. The word came out like it had rust on it. Yes, free. As in, you can do whatever you want. Leave, stay, start a band, run a noodle stall. Whatever. I mean, sure, the house is falling apart, but hey, free real estate. The shorter one, Sen, blinked, then glanced at her sister. Her lips twitched as if she were holding back a smile. Lyra, however, looked as though Kael had just suggested jumping into a reactor core. You mock us, Lyra said flatly. Not at all. I'm just bad at this whole inheritance/ownership thing. Never practiced. My uncle didn't exactly leave a handbook. He gestured toward the broken wall. If you're looking for orders, the only one I have is, don't trip on the loose plating. Nearly broke my neck 5 minutes ago. A silence stretched between them, thick and strange. Then Sen spoke softly, almost as if she feared the air would reject the words. Then we belong to you by choice. Kael rubbed the back of his neck. I mean, if that's how you want to put it. Personally, I call it roommates with a questionable landlord situation. The corner of Sen's mouth finally gave way to a small laugh, the sound like a note of music in the dead courtyard. Lyra's expression cracked, not into a smile, but into something uncertain, as if the ground beneath her had shifted and she wasn't sure if she'd fall. Kael dropped his bag and looked around. Well, I suppose we should go inside. Maybe find out if the place has plumbing, or at least a bucket. If you're stuck with me, we might as well not starve or smell like space ferrets. Inside, the house creaked and groaned, half its systems offline. Panels flickered, wiring dangled like vines, and a faint humming suggested something in the basement was alive and probably angry. Kael tapped at a control panel until it sparked, then stepped back quickly. Okay, that's a no. Rule number 1 of our new arrangement. Don't let me near electronics. Unless you enjoy accidental fireworks. Sen chuckled again. Lyra folded her arms, still suspicious, but her eyes lingered on Kael with something new. Confusion. maybe even curiosity. That night, they sat in the dusty kitchen, sharing a meal of ration packs Kael had brought. He made a face as he chewed. Tastes like cardboard dipped in regret. If I'm your new master, I officially decree we find better food. Sen smiled openly now. You are strange. Kael raised his pouch in a mock toast. Strange is better than cruel, right? Lyra didn't answer, but her eyes softened for a heartbeat before she looked away. Kael leaned back, staring at the cracked ceiling. He had come expecting land, maybe wealth, maybe a new life. Instead, he had inherited two women with long ears, centuries of chains in their shadows, and the heavy silence of expectations he had no idea how to meet. He sighed, then smirked. Well, could have been worse. At least I didn't inherit my uncle's taste in cabbage. The sisters exchanged another look, and in that look something fragile shifted, like the first crack of light breaking into a sealed chamber. Morning on the colony came not with birdsong or sunshine, but with a grating alarm from a half-broken clock Kael found wedged in a drawer. The thing buzzed like a swarm of angry insects until he smacked it with a shoe. When he stumbled into the kitchen, hair sticking up in 6 different directions, he found Lyra already awake, standing as though she'd been on guard all night. Sen sat at the table, fiddling with the edge of a ration wrapper, eyes bright with curiosity. Morning, Kael mumbled, searching for coffee and finding only a packet labeled Nutrient Suspension Type 7. He read the fine print and groaned. Warning, may induce dizziness, nausea, and a deep sense of existential dread. Great. Breakfast of champions. Lyra's stare didn't waver. You are unfit. Kael poured the suspension into a cup, sniffed it, and winced. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me before caffeine. He sipped, gagged, and waved his free hand. See, perfectly fine. Just need to ignore the taste of wet socks. Sen giggled into her hand. Lyra's brow furrowed deeper, though Kael thought he saw her lips twitch almost imperceptibly. After breakfast, if it could be called that, Kael announced his grand plan. Step 1. We fix this place before it collapses on us. Step 2. Find food that doesn't taste like alien shoe leather. Step 3. Survive long enough to make steps 4 and 5. The sisters exchanged a glance. Sen asked softly, and what would step 4 be? Kael grinned. Profit, of course. Isn't that how all great plans go? Lyra crossed her arms. You jest in the face of ruin. Yes, Kael said cheerfully, because ruin doesn't like it when you laugh at it. Throws it off balance. Keeps it guessing. They spent the day exploring the estate. Doors refused to open until Kael coaxed them with gentle kicks, and one hallway ended abruptly in a half-built wall, as if his uncle had lost interest mid-construction. They discovered a greenhouse full of shriveled plants, and Kael declared it a promising future salad bar once we convince anything green to grow again. The basement hummed ominously, and when Kael tried the lights, something snarled. He quickly shut the door. Right, basement is officially haunted. We'll deal with it after we buy holy water and maybe a flamethrower. Sen followed him closely, eyes wide with wonder as though every broken panel was a treasure. Lyra, however, inspected everything with suspicion, certain some trap waited for them. When Kael tripped over a loose cable and nearly fell face-first into a rusty pipe, Lyra caught him by the arm. You will kill yourself before the week ends. Probably, Kael admitted, brushing himself off. But at least I'll go down stylishly. Tripping is an art form. By late afternoon, a visitor arrived. The front gate creaked open, and a man in a patched uniform strode in, flanked by 2 hovering drones. His expression was sharp, calculating. So, you're the nephew? Kael nodded cautiously. Depends. If this is about debts, I'm the neighbor. If it's about money, I'm suddenly very related. The man ignored the joke. His eyes flicked toward the sisters, and something like greed passed across his face. Those 2 belong to you now. Kael felt the weight of the words, the casual cruelty. He forced a grin. Actually, I was thinking of starting a knitting club. They're free to join if they want. We meet Tuesdays. Bring your own needles. The man's jaw tightened. Tradition says otherwise. Their kind were bound generations ago. The colony respects those bonds. Lyra stiffened, her whole body going rigid. Sen looked down, voice barely audible. That is what they have always said. Kael put his hands up. Well, consider me the tradition breaker. I'm terrible at following rules. Ask any of my old teachers. One even wrote me a recommendation letter that said, Kael has an impressive talent for not listening. The man's drone's word, recording everything. You will find the colony less amused. There are laws. Expect challenges. With that, he turned on his heel and left, the gate clanging shut behind him. When the echo faded, Kael let out a long breath. Well, that went well. He didn't shoot us. Always a win in my book. Lyra glared at him. You treat this as play, but you endanger us all. Kael sobered, though he tried to keep his tone light. I know it's serious, but if I let it crush me, I'll make bad choices. Humor's the only shield I've got. Sen reached across the table and touched her sister's arm. Maybe his way is different. Not wrong, just different. Lyra pulled away, but not as sharply as before. That evening, Kael tried to cook in the barely functioning kitchen. Smoke poured from the heating unit, alarms blared, and he waved his arms wildly. Don't panic. It's just my culinary masterpiece in progress. Tonight's special, chard surprise. Sen laughed until tears welled in her eyes. Even Lyra let out a reluctant snort before clamping her lips shut. When they finally sat with a salvageable meal of half-burnt stew, Kael raised his spoon. To survival, and to proving grumpy colonists wrong. Lyra stared at him for a long moment then, to his surprise, lifted her spoon too. Sen followed with a bright smile. Kael grinned. Look at us. A real family dinner. Dysfunctional, smoke-filled, and possibly poisonous, but family nonetheless. For the first time since he'd arrived, the silence between them wasn't hostile. It was cautious, fragile, and maybe, just maybe, hopeful. Kael decided the third morning in the house that it was time for community outreach. His words, not theirs. Lyra crossed her arms, Sen tilted her head, and both watched him wrestle with a half-broken console while mumbling about how neighbors loved when you brought pie. We don't have pie, Sen reminded gently. Kael waved a hand. Details. We'll improvise. Colony folk probably haven't had decent humor in years, so I'll bring jokes instead. Cheaper, less calories. Lyra muttered. Your jokes are a weapon. Exactly, Kael said brightly. Weapons of mass distraction. The console sputtered and finally projected a flickering map of the settlement. Dots represented shops, market stalls, repair yards, and ominous restricted zones that Kael immediately declared off limits unless they were desperate for adventure or had nothing better to do on a Friday night. He dragged his finger across the map. Here, Market Square. Perfect place to mingle. Buy supplies. Convince people I'm not a villainous overlord with a penchant for enslaving women. Sen's brow furrowed. But that is what they will believe. Then we prove them wrong, Kael said, stuffing ration packs into a bag. Besides, markets usually have food that doesn't taste like industrial waste. If we're lucky, maybe even coffee. The walk into town drew stares. Colonists paused mid-task, eyes narrowing as they took in Kael flanked by the sisters. Whispered words floated through the dusty air, bonded, inheritance, custom. Kael responded with cheerful waves, which only made the whispers grow louder. At the market, rows of stalls overflowed with alien produce, glowing minerals, and machinery parts salvaged from wrecked ships. A merchant barked about fuel cells. Another bragged about the potency of their spice collection. Kael tried to haggle for a packet of something green and vaguely edible. The merchant sneered. You pay double. You come with them. Kael blinked. What? Do my companions eat more air than the rest of us? It is the price, the merchant snapped. His eyes never left the sisters. Kael leaned closer. Listen, my friend, if you're trying to intimidate me, you should know I've already survived 3 breakfasts of nutrient suspension type 7. Nothing scares me anymore. Sen giggled, covering her mouth. Lyra looked like she wanted to drag him away before he got himself beaten. But the merchant finally rolled his eyes, muttered about idiots, and sold at a fair price. Kael handed the bag to Sen with a flourish. See, We can survive the economy. Step 1 of galactic conquest complete. Galactic conquest? She asked. Just a hobby, Kael said. Everyone needs one. They spent the rest of the morning weaving through stalls. Sen lingered at every trinket, fascinated by glowing stones and mechanical toys. Lyra kept scanning the crowd, her hand twitching toward a hidden blade Kael hadn't noticed before. Kael, meanwhile, tried samples of food that ranged from deliciously spicy to something that nearly melted his tongue. Things soured when a group of colonists blocked their path. Men in patched uniforms, the same kind Kael had seen at the gate earlier. Their leader smirked. The nephew. Playing house with your prizes. Kael forced a grin. Actually, we were playing grocery shopping. Very intense game. Lots of strategy. You should try it. The man stepped closer. You defy custom. Do you think your jokes will protect you? Kael held up a hand. Honestly, I was hoping my dazzling smile would do the trick. But sure, jokes are plan B. The tension thickened, but before it snapped, Sen stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but she said, He is not like the others. He has not hurt us. He does not command. The crowd shifted uneasily. Whispers rose again. Some sneered, others frowned thoughtfully. Lyra's eyes widened at her sister's boldness. Kael seized the moment. Exactly. Look, I'm new here. I don't know your traditions, but I do know one thing. Forcing people into chains never made a colony thrive. Trust me. I can barely keep this shirt tucked in. Chains are way out of my league. The leader scowled but finally spat on the ground and motioned his men away. You will regret this defiance. Kael waited until they disappeared, then exhaled hard. Well, that went better than expected. No punches, no laser fire, not even a pie thrown at me. I'd call that a win. Sen smiled nervously. Lyra glared, though her glare seemed directed more at the departing men than at Kael. Back at the estate, they unloaded supplies. Kael set down a glowing fruit that pulsed faintly, watching it beat like a heart. Either it's fresh, or it's trying to escape. If it sprouts legs, we'll keep it as a pet. Sen laughed until she almost dropped the bag. Lyra shook her head, but her lips twitched again, betraying the tiniest crack in her stern mask. That night, they sat together at the rickety table, eating stew made from their new ingredients. It actually tasted good, warm, savory, alive. Kael leaned back, patting his stomach. And thus begins the golden age of not eating despair paste. Our civilization is saved. For a long while, the sisters were quiet. Then Sen asked, Why are you so different? Kael blinked. Because I once tried to fix a toaster with chewing gum and nearly blew up an apartment block? Sen shook her head gently. Not that. Different from men we have known. Kael thought, then shrugged. Maybe because I don't want to be remembered for chains. Jokes are lighter, easier to carry. Lyra stared at him, eyes unreadable. For once, she didn't argue. As they cleaned up, Kael looked around their battered home. It was still broken, still humming ominously, still filled with shadows of an uncle he barely knew. But with every laugh, every shared meal, every stubborn refusal to bow to old customs, something new was forming in its place. Something fragile but real. He grinned. All right, team. Tomorrow, the basement. Time to meet whatever monster lives down there. I'm taking bets, giant rat, haunted engine, or my uncle's ghost with a frying pan. Sen's eyes lit with excitement. Lyra groaned. We will all die. Probably, Kael said, but at least it'll be memorable. Kael stood at the top of the basement stairs armed with a flashlight, a frying pan, and the kind of optimism usually reserved for people who had no idea what they were doing. Sen peeked over his shoulder with wide eyes, clearly excited. Lyra crossed her arms and muttered that this was the dumbest idea since mankind invented self-heating socks that occasionally caught fire. All right, Kael whispered dramatically. We descend into the belly of the beast. If I don't make it back, remember me as the hero who bravely sacrificed himself against dust bunnies and leaky pipes. You will die tripping over your own feet, Lyra said. Exactly. A noble end. They crept down the stairs. The air grew heavier, filled with a low thrumming like a heartbeat echoing through metal walls. At the bottom, Kael swung the flashlight and revealed a massive machine embedded into the foundation. It pulsed faintly with blue light, cables coiling like veins across the floor. Sen's voice was hushed with awe. This is now the colony. It is older. Kael tapped a frying pan against his leg. So what you're saying is my uncle left me a basement with a mystery engine from who knows where. Fantastic. Because I was worried things were getting too normal. Lyra approached cautiously, her fingers brushing one of the cables. It shivered at her touch. She withdrew quickly, her expression dark. This is dangerous. It is not meant to sleep here. Kael crouched, squinting at a control panel covered in alien symbols. Well, if it's dangerous, we probably shouldn't poke it. He immediately poked it. The machine hummed louder, lights flickering. Kael yanked his hand back. See, scientific method. Poke, observe chaos, retreat. Sen laughed nervously, though her eyes never left the engine. What is it? Lyra shook her head. Our ancestors spoke of machines that bound minds, that powered fleets. They were forbidden. Kael blinked. So my uncle stored a forbidden alien mind engine in his basement, and I thought the weirdest thing I'd inherit was tax debt. Before they could argue further, the machine pulsed, and a holographic display flickered to life. An androgynous figure of light appeared, voice crackling. Designation Kael detected. Authorization pending. System dormant for 162 cycles. Query, do you wish to activate? Kael opened his mouth, then shut it. Wow. Normally I'm asked if I want to update my software, not activate a mystery basement god. Lyra hissed. Say no. Sen whispered, but it could help us. If it is power. The hologram waited patiently. Kael scratched his head. I'll get back to you on that. Can you, take a message? Awaiting command. The hologram droned, then blinked out, leaving the machine thrumming quietly again. Back upstairs, Kael flopped into a chair. All right, new rule. We don't press buttons on ancient alien tech until at least after lunch. Sen leaned forward, excitement shining. But it could be important. Why would your uncle keep it hidden? Kael shrugged. Knowing him, probably to win bets at poker. Asterisk, oh, you've got a full house? Well, I've got a basement engine that can bend reality. Asterisk. Lyra glared. Do not make light of this. Too late, Kael said. It's my coping mechanism. Their debate was cut short by another visitor at the gate. A small delegation of colonists entered, led by the same uniformed man from the market. His drone scanned the property, and his smile was the kind that promised trouble. We hear you uncovered something, he said smoothly. Your uncle was known for keeping curiosities. Kael spread his arms innocently. What, this old dump? Unless you're here to admire our collection of broken furniture and questionable stew, you'll be disappointed. The man's gaze slid toward the basement door. You will find the colony council less tolerant of secrets. Whatever is hidden here belongs to the colony. Kael forced a laugh. Right, because you've all been so generous and welcoming already. Sorry, but the family basement stays off limits. House rules. The man's smile vanished. You test patience. Others will come. When they left, the sisters looked uneasy. Lyra hissed. You should have yielded. We cannot fight them all. Kael leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Maybe not. But if they want whatever's in that basement, then we hold the cards. Terrible, slightly burnt cards, but still cards. That night, as the three of them ate in uneasy silence, the house lights flickered. The hum from below deepened, as if the machine knew it had been discovered. Sen whispered, It feels alive. Kael tapped a spoon against his bowl. Yeah, and alive things get hungry. Let's just hope it doesn't want nutrient suspension type 7. Even I wouldn't wish that on an ancient alien engine. For the first time, even Lyra smiled, though it was sharp and fleeting. Sleep came uneasily, filled with dreams of glowing wires wrapping around the colony, of laughter echoing through metal halls, of choices waiting in the shadows of the basement. Kael woke with the uneasy certainty that his uncle's inheritance wasn't just two sisters bound by tradition, but a secret powerful enough to change the fate of the colony, or destroy it. He groaned, pulling the blanket over his head. Great. Not only roommates and cabbage-flavored rations, but also galactic doom in the basement. Thanks, Uncle. Really nailed the gift-giving this time. Kael woke to the sound of the basement humming like a restless giant. The entire house vibrated, cupboards rattling, loose panels clanging. Sen burst into the room, eyes wide. It's awakening. Behind her, Lyra stood tense, already armed. Kael rubbed his face. Can't we ever have a quiet morning with toast, and maybe a nap instead of cosmic doom in the basement? They rushed downstairs, the machine now glowing with fierce blue light. The hologram reappeared, voice clear and commanding. Designation Kael confirmed. Anomaly detected. Unauthorized access from external sources. Defense protocols primed. Await command. Kael blinked. Hold on. You've been asleep for centuries, and the first thing you want is a battle plan. You're like a cranky grandparent waking up from a nap. Lyra grabbed his arm. Shut it down before the council comes. If they know it responds to you, they will tear this place apart. Sen whispered. Or we could use it. Protect ourselves. The machine pulsed, awaiting orders. Kael stared at it, feeling the weight of both sisters' eyes on him. He had stumbled into this inheritance thinking it would be land or money, maybe even nothing. Instead, he had been handed chains, expectations, and now an ancient weapon. He cleared his throat. Listen, big shiny friend, no defense protocols. Just stand by. No vaporizing neighbors. They're already grumpy enough. The hologram paused, then flickered. Standby mode engaged. The tension in the room snapped like a wire. Lyra exhaled sharply. You are a fool. Thank you, Kael said. I practice daily. But before they could argue further, alarms blared outside. The colony council had come, armed drones filling the sky, colonists gathering in a restless crowd. At the gate, the same uniformed man shouted through a loudspeaker. By order of the council, surrender the bonded subjects and the artifact hidden within. Defiance will not be tolerated. Sen grabbed Kael's sleeve. They mean us. Kael swallowed, then stepped forward. Yeah, I figured. Guess I'm popular now. Always wanted fans, but not the angry mob kind. The crowd surged, demanding obedience. Lyra hissed, we cannot fight them. If you yield us, perhaps they will spare you. Kael turned on her, eyes sharper than they had ever been. No, not happening. I didn't come all this way just to become another link in their chains. You're not property. You're people. And if they can't handle that, well then they can handle my terrible cooking instead. Sen's laugh cut through the tension like sunlight. Even Lyra blinked at him, her scowl wavering. The council advanced, drones buzzing ominously. Kael raised his hands and shouted over the noise. Listen up. I don't care what your traditions say. These women aren't things to be inherited. They're free. And as for the shiny humming nightmare in my basement, guess what? It only listens to me. So unless you want me to accidentally unleash its defense protocols while sneezing, you're going to back off. The crowd hesitated, murmurs rippling. Fear of the machine clashed with the unease of hearing a man openly reject tradition. For the first time, the weight of their certainty cracked. Kael pressed the advantage, his voice steadier. You've kept chains for generations, and what's it brought you? Suspicion, fear, division. You think you're strong because you bind others, but strength isn't chains. Strength is choice. And I choose freedom for them, for me, and for this colony, if you've got the guts to join us. Sen stepped to his side, her voice ringing clear. We are not afraid. Lyra hesitated, then slowly joined, standing tall beside them. For once, she wasn't shielding herself with suspicion but with defiance. We will not return to chains. The crowd wavered. The councilman sneered, but his drones faltered, scanning the glowing house. He saw the truth. The machine would never obey him. He spat on the ground and withdrew, muttering threats. The colonists watched him leave, some angry, some curious, some quietly thoughtful. The first cracks in the old order had formed. Later, as the sun set and quiet returned, the three of them sat at the rickety table. The stew simmered gently, the hum of the machine now soft and content beneath the floor. Kael lifted his spoon in a mock toast. To surviving angry mobs, ancient engines, and not dying horribly in a fireball. Honestly, that's a pretty good day. Sen laughed, bright and free. Lyra shook her head but finally, openly smiled. Kael leaned back, a strange warmth filling him. He had arrived as a man with nothing but bad jokes and worse luck. He had inherited chains and turned them into choices, fear and turned it into laughter. He was still clumsy, still unfit for grandeur, but maybe that was exactly what made the difference. He sighed contentedly. Well, I didn't get a spaceship or treasure, but I think I got something better. Sen tilted her head. What is that? Kael grinned. Family. The weird, stubborn, possibly doomed kind. My favorite. For the first time, Lyra did not argue. And beneath them, the old machine pulsed once, faint and steady, like a heartbeat joining theirs.